Hello friends, this is Worm, and it is Monday, which means it's time for another episode of Exotic Recrafting, the series where we take a look at weak, underused, or straight up bad exotics inside of PvE and talk about how we can make them better. And on the menu today we have Vigilance Wing. And I know Vigilance Wing is more of like a PvP weapon, I guess, like even to get the catalyst you have to play PvP, blah 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 blah. But at the same time, I'm a firm believer that every weapon should be at least somewhat viable in both PvE and PvP. We did last word a couple weeks ago and how we can make it better inside of PvE. So today we're gonna do Vigilance Wing. Now, first of all, we need to talk about what Vigilance Wing actually does. It comes with the perk Last Stand. It says improved weapon performance and greatly increases recovery when its wielder is the last living member of a fire team. And then it has a unique perk, Harsh Truce. The weapon fires, I'm sorry, I got these two reversed. Harsh Truce is the intrinsic, Last Stand is the unique perk, but Harsh Truce states the weapon fires in a 5-round burst, and when an ally, a nearby ally is killed, you gain health regeneration and increased movement speed. This is a very, very niche exotic, unfortunately. And it is niche in the fact that it relies on your team dying to actually work. And I mean, like, anybody can tell you, when your team has to die for a weapon or an armor set or a build or something to work, it's probably not going to be super great, super strong. I mean, look at Precious Scars. Prior to its rework, of course, Precious Scars is now in a very good spot, but prior to its rework, it was an incredibly weak exotic because, I mean, yeah, like you got a cool overshield when you pick people up, but again, it required people on your team to die. And if people didn't die, if people were A, too good, or maybe, you know, B, you're playing solo, like you didn't get any value out of it. And I'm feeling the same issue is going on here with Vigilance Wings. Sorry, I have something in my eye here. I'm trying to get it out as I talk. But with that being said, I want to talk about how we can potentially rework the weapon to make it a little bit better, I guess, you know, more viable, maybe not quite so reliant on teammates dying to actually function. Apologies, I think I got a hair in there or something. But with that being said, I want to start by the very first effect that it says that you get when a nearby ally dies. It says you gain health regeneration, and the health regeneration is literally just that. It starts healing. It's similar to knockout or crimson or anything like that. And the important thing behind talking about health regeneration as opposed to health restoration is, of course, regeneration can be stunned. It can be interrupted, meaning if you get a kill, say with Crimson, or if a nearby ally dies here and you're using Vigilance Wing and you take any damage at all, your health regeneration is going to immediately stop. And I think that is a really limiting factor of this weapon. In fact, that's really a limiting factor of anything that does health regeneration at all, is that it can be stunned instantly, meaning you get no effect out of it. And one of the first changes I would actually make to the weapon here is the ability to grant restoration, the solar keyword, because restoration cannot be interrupted. And my idea behind, you know, how it could work here is when a nearby ally dies, you get restoration ×2 for basically its max duration. And again, the reason why I'm saying max duration, like when you're using a weapon that relies on your teammates to die, like it needs to have a really strong effect when they do die. Not so that, you know, your team will throw on purpose so that you get this, but if it's just performing like normally until someone dies, in order for it to really warrant use, when somebody dies, you need a strong effect. And I think restoration ×2 is an incredibly strong effect inside of PvE, especially. I mean, that's really fast health regeneration. Look at Stronghold. Stronghold gives restoration ×2, and it is a phenomenal exotic. It's niche because you got to use it with swords, but it is very, very strong. And I think Harsh Truths could honestly build into that. Not only that, but I think it would also be okay to have this, have restoration ×2 at its max duration, because at the end of the day, Vigilance Wing is a kinetic weapon, so it can't synergize with was it Empyrean? The one where solar weapon final blows grants an increased duration. But if you really wanted to build into it, you could build into that. That's why I think that, that would be the first change that I would make to it is, change that health regeneration to restoration ×2. Let it synergize with solar, but more importantly than just synergizing with solar, let it be unstunnable and let it be much faster than what it is currently. Now it also says you gain increased movement speed, and for the increased movement speed, when I was using it, I really couldn't notice an increase in movement speed. And so I want to be careful when I say, oh, we should just max the movement speed out. But I'm thinking like maybe move it up to like tier 10, right? Give it like a tier 10 movement speed. So if you're running as like a Titan or Warlock and you have low mobility, you have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 mobility, it automatically brings it up to a tier 10 mobility, plus maybe even a movement speed modifier so that you can move a little bit faster. That way, like as you're walking almost as fast as you're sprinting. You can strafe very, very quickly, stuff like that, just to increase that movement speed. Again, we want it to feel noticeable. You could even say it increases your sprint speed as well. And the purpose of designing it like this is so that you could run to that person who is now down on the ground. You can run to their orb and pick them up. Maybe that could be the fantasy behind it. And of course, last stand, improved weapon performance and greatly increased recovery when its wielder is the last living member of its fire team. It says weapon performance. It doesn't give any other details outside of that. It doesn't give any stats on, I'm on light GG, by the way, but it doesn't give any stats, and it doesn't give the actual recovery increase that you get. But I would imagine the recovery increase probably pretty good. It probably brings you up to tier 10 recovery. And the weapon performance actually does feel pretty good if you happen to be the last living member. But again, when you're the last living member, it's like, okay, like, yeah, like it's got great performance, but at the same time, I'm in Trials of Osiris, I'm in a Grandmaster Nightfall, and I need something to help me get out of this situation where I'm the last one alive. And that's why I think that we need to potentially just rework this whole perk here, Last Stand, okay? And yes, we can keep all the effects that Last Stand currently has, but I also think we should build into the idea of allies being critically injured or critically wounded. Perhaps when an ally is critically wounded, for example, you get these benefits instead of just when they die. When an ally is critically wounded, then when they actually do die, you get a substantial damage boost. Maybe like, a massive damage boost, maybe like 500% of a damage boost just for 10 seconds. It lasts as long as Harsh Truths does. It doesn't, like last for infinity or anything like that. But I think that could be a good balancing trade-off. And again, this is only in PvP, or only in PvE, sorry, not PvP. This does not apply in PvP. Maybe if you did give it an increase in damage PvP, it's just like 10% or something. But in PvE, it really needs to feel like it's going to pull you out of a sticky situation. And with that being said, I think also another thing that we could change about Vigilance Wing here is when Harsh Truths activates, maybe you get an aura around you similar to Precious Scars, and you could actually make Precious Scars and Vigilance Wing synergize with each other. I think that would be pretty cool. That's a conversation for another time. But give you like a powerful overshield that will allow you to run in, revive your ally, and escort them out of harm's way. You've got a big damage boost, you've got better stats, you've got quicker movement speed, all this stuff working for you. That way, if your teammates are dying, you're not just like, okay, well now I got some nice benefits, but the weapon still feels pretty standard. Like, the weapon can still feel standard, but when somebody dies on your fire team, you really need to feel those strong effects. And that's another reason why I said, maybe instead of deaths, it's upon being critically wounded or something like that. That way it's more effective whenever you are actually in combat and not just rely on your teammates dying. Because for example, if you're doing like a Nightfall strike and you're with two really good players that just never die, you're just never getting utility out of these perks. But at the same time, think about how many players are critically wounded throughout, strikes, raids, Nightfall, stuff like that. Like that would make the Vigilance Wing just feel a little bit better as if it worked with critically, allies being critically wounded. Now, I also think that there should be maybe some self-help here. And whenever the player that's using Vigilance Wing is critically wounded, there is some additional effects that can help them out. Instead of getting like restoration, you get, increased movement speed every time your shields are broken. You get increased recovery when your shields are broken. You get, when your shields are broken, it starts a timer, like say 10-second timer. And every time you get a kill in that 10 seconds, it fully reloads the magazine. Or even better yet, while that 10-second timer is going, the weapon just automatically reloads itself, so you never have to reload. You could also say that, getting kills with the weapon would extend the duration of Harsh Truths. And then on top of that, You could have that auto reload functionality where when Harsh Truths is active, you just have a bottomless magazine. It just constantly refills itself. I think that that would, again, add to the weapon, because like I said, currently relying on your teammates dying is not, it just doesn't feel that good. You know, and especially if you've got good teammates, especially in content where deaths are really, really like discouraged, you know, in master level content, in grandmasters, like players don't want to die. Players are fighting for their lives 99% of the time. So you are not going to be getting a lot of value out of this. So I think that these changes, you know, some of these changes to Harsh Truth, maybe not all of them, but at least 3 or 4 of them would help benefit this weapon tremendously, so that it sees more viability inside of content. And again, I think that this is one of those weapons that's, it's very niche. It's not ever going to be like a meta pick, meta option, but we're not trying to make every weapon meta. We just want to make weapons more viable inside of whatever level of content we're doing, of course. So I want to know what your thoughts on Vigilance Wings. How would you improve it, change it, make it better? Tell me all that stuff in the comments. Of course, if you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor, drop a like, helps the channel a lot. Subscribe for more daily Destiny content. And remember, we only have about 6 days left to play Destiny 2 before the final shape. So this week, we're probably just going to be doing some fun stuff here on the channel, like, you know, maybe some tier lists and stuff like that. But yeah, if you have any ideas for videos you want to see us talk about, tell me those in the comments too. But yeah, that's it for me. I'll see y'all next time, guys. Bye for now.